Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to take a look at some new Fractal AIO coolers because they have upgraded. We have a new range. So the old one was the older Kelvin, that's what they were called, and now we've got Celsius. Now I've got the 240mm model, which is probably the most common and the most bought, the most popular, but I've also got the Celsius S36, which is a 360mm model. And yes, you are going to need a bigger case for that, but it's much more down the enthusiast line, and there's a few points and benefits I'd like to talk to you about with those when we get into the conclusion. Now the 240mm model is $104.99, and the 360mm model is $114.99 of your Great British beer tokens. Obviously, prices in euros and dollars are going to be slightly different. Excuse me, but you can obviously go and look at your favoured e-tailer to go and get prices for those. I've got something wrong with my throat today. Anyway, I'm not ill, don't worry. Anyway, it's time to have a look. It's not so much a box opening, even though I am opening a box, but it's more the fact that I can show you exactly what comes with it. Now, guide and stuff, there's no CD or anything in there. Okay, lovely, lovely. I'm just going to get my my specifications list, because the fans that are in it are Fractal Design Dynamic X2 GP12 PWMs. Don't mistake the ×2 with the fact that you only think that you're going to get 2 fans in the 360, because it's listed as ×2 on both, so I'm assuming that it's an actual brand name for the fan itself. But like I said, it's a PWM fan, 120mm. There are 2 of them in the 240, there are 3 of them in the 360. Now, one thing I can say straight out of the gate is it does support AM4. Now, this is the new Asetek AM4 and AM3 mount, so it fits both. That's pretty great, and it fits pretty much everything as well, because when it comes to actual sockets, it's pretty much all of the Intels and all of the AMDs. Now, AMD is mainly AM3 and AM4. I think the only one it doesn't fit is AM1, but a cooler like this on AM1 would be redonkulous. Anyway, so getting down to the nitty-gritty of the cooler itself, there is lots of plastic bags and all of that kind of mumbo jumbo. Now, they do come fitted with thermal paste already on it, and you can, do you know what I mean? It's totally down to you guys if you want to use that. I've just got into a habit, and it's, you know, no fault with any brand. I always take that off and use my own. People always ask me what I use for myself. And normally not to a NTH1 or Arctic Cooling MX4, and I use the MX4 just because I can get really big tubes of it, and that's easier for me at work. So, right, first things first, we'll have a look at the actual pump itself. So there is a Fractal logo up at the top here, and it's covered in plastic, which I'm assuming that sticker was meant to have pulled off. Right, okay, so we'll take all that off. Okay, so there is a Fractal logo. If I get it in the right light, just up in this top corner, there are some indicator lights down the side, and it's auto or PWM. Now, basically what that means is the essentially the auto mode, it just favours silence. So what it will do is it will tune the pump and the fan speeds to work effectively but quietly. If you go onto PWM mode, what that means is it will follow whatever the PWM signal from the motherboard feeds into it. So then you can use the your motherboard fan software or any third-party fan software, because essentially it then acts like a fan. Now, it does only have this one connector, which is kind of cool. But what it also does, it has hidden fan cables down here so that you don't actually see them going up, which is kind of cool. Now, These are G1/4 fittings, and you can remove these if you want because they are technically expandable. But if you did expand them, there's no like easy way to fill them. So you then have to think about T-lines and reservoirs and stuff. And the pump specifications on both are 40 litres per hour. It's a 1 metre H2O head height at 1.4 psi. And that's about it really. They say about 20 dBA for noise as well as a maxi chat. And also, I did forget to mention, it's 1950 RPM to 3150 RPM for the pump speeds. Now, like I said, we've got these metal fittings here. They've got the Fractal logo on them. I know I'm all off centre, but I said about a hidden wire, and this is where stuff gets kept really clever. And that's, if you look here, it comes out of the hose and then into this, and then there's a hub on the radiator. So you've got the 2 pinouts here. So that's the one that comes up from the pump, and then that's the 2 connectors that you can put your fan on. So you can keep your cabling all uber clean. And then the radiator, again, is G1/4 fittings if you did want to take it apart or anything like that. And then it's a fairly plain looking radiator. There's nothing particularly special about it. Sticker on the end with a Fractal logo. And then the only random thing which we didn't particularly like was this serial number kind of printed on the side. If they'd gone to the trouble of doing that, you think they would have put, I don't know, like a Fractal logo on it or something, because you're obviously only going to have it like that way round, so you'd have the Fractal logo that way up, or that way round, and you'd have the, oh, I don't know. Just doesn't feel right. I still don't understand, considering all of these things are normally, the sides of them are steel, why they don't just send you a magnetic logo that you can turn up whatever way you wanted. Anyway, right, so 240mm radiator. I've not actually seen any information about threads per inch, fins per inch, FPI, on the specifications. I'm looking now, but it's just dawned on me that I didn't see anything at all. And nope, there's nothing on there. But anyway, so that's that. And then the 360mm version is exactly the same. It's just, as you would assume, a much bigger rad. So everything else is the same. It's just a much huge big rad. And like I said, there are 3 fans. There's one at the end. The other 2 there. Still does AM4. All of that mumbo jumbo. It's bish bash bosh. And the fans, just so that you're aware, they are 500 to 2000 RPM. And they say that that's 87.6 CFM. So quite a bit of CFM, really, when you think about it. But hold tight, because we do need to talk to you about the performance and everything with these. Now, the rad size on these, I did forget to say, they're both, give or take, 30mm each. I think they say it's like 27.5. So when it comes to cases, just assume that it's 30mm for the radiator. You've then their normal 25mm thick fans, so that's 55mm in total. So if you need to do any measuring above your motherboard, in front, you know, wherever you're deciding to put them, they're the measurements that you really need to think about. If you want to go push-pull and add extra fans, you just add another 25mm on. It's all going to come down to your specific case. Like I said, the S24, the 240mm, most of the cases big enough nowadays do cater for a 240mm radiator. Sometimes not in the roof, sometimes you do get them in the front. And again, with the S36, it's going to be case dependent. That's all going to be down to you. Please don't ask me in the comments, because I can't answer every time someone goes, oh, does it fit in my case? Look on, if you need to know whether it will fit in your case, go and have a look on your case manufacturer's website listing for your specific case, and it normally say what radiators are listed. Or if I've reviewed it, go and watch the video, because you'll get a quicker answer by watching the video than maybe waiting 24 hours for me to see it, and more than likely end up ignoring it because I get hundreds of comments each day. Anyway, so there's a way that you can go and find out whether you can get this one in your rig or you can get this one in your rig. You can work it out yourself. Google image if you're desperate. Do you know what I mean? There's plenty of ways that you can use the resources available to you to get a quicker one. But like I said, if it's a case and I have reviewed it, I will talk about radiator positioning and sizing in the reviews. So, you know, go and do that. To be fair, I review so many cases sometimes, even I have to go and watch the videos. So it may help you for you to just go and do it. And like I said, you'll get an answer quicker. So, test rig that we did it on. Although these do support Ryzen, we've not tested many coolers on Ryzen yet, and we didn't get a lot of time with these because they arrived quite late. There was a shipping delay in that they went on a little bit of a trip, so we got them quite late. And also, if we add a second CPU in to test, it actually then, obviously, to do the same sort of testing, doubles our testing. Might be something we'll look at in the future, but anyway, what you can do is, if you're thinking about coolers, the best thing you can do is, yes, we've tested on Intel because we've been using the 7700K for a while, and it does mean that we've got a 4.8 gigahertz at roughly stock volts, and then we've got a 5 gigahertz at 1.35 volts to be able to distinguish between the two. But the most important thing is, if you're looking at this sort of thing, then what you can do is look at the other coolers in the graph and use it to kind of cross-reference. You don't necessarily need to know what it's going to be doing on Ryzen. You can go and look at our Ryzen roundup, find out how a cooler performed on that, find it in the Intel graph, and then see whether this performs better or worse. If it performs better on this, then it's going to perform better on Ryzen as well. So, a few little things out there, just it might help calm certain people down. So, onwards and upwards. So, yes, 7700K, we've 4.8 gigahertz, 1.25 volts. 1.25 volts is actually roughly what a lot of boards put in at stock. So, this is a fairly meaty, big graph, and the S24 and the S36, there's only, you know, a degree between them really, but you know, a degree's a degree, but what that does is, with the degree difference, that does kind of show you that, you know, with those kind of settings, that the extra fan doesn't really do a great deal. When we bump up to 5 gigahertz though, it opened up not at all. It was just a degree again. But what this does, weirdly, is what it does end up sort of telling us is, you do get to a point where you don't need loads more rad space. So if you ever see someone, for argument's sake, where they've got a 480mm radiator on a CPU only loop, really, you know, if they've got their fans up really loud as well, and they say, oh, it's amazing cooling, it's kind of not, because you do get to the point where you don't get any extra benefits because you can't get it down any cooler. You'd actually then to start dropping ambient temperatures and things like that. Now, you've seen those two graphs. I've split them up for you. This is the point where I'm going to tell you, and a lot of people are going to have heart attacks about it, this is the point where I'm going to tell you that, because we didn't have much time, normally we would have done a 12 volt and then a 7 volt test, but we literally didn't have time. We've churned these tests out and all the pictures and the written review and everything in 24 hours, basically. So we tested them at 12 volts, so they're at max speed. So when they sit in the graphs, people are now instantly like, oh, so they, you know, things are going to get worse. To be honest with you, they don't really get a great deal worse when you're not running them at 12 volts. But this is the point where a lot of people are now thinking to themselves, oh, 12 volts, it's going to be really loud. So I bring up this graph instead. And it's actually kind of not. Now, one thing I do have to say about this graph is, you can only compare our results to our results, because just using even a different sound meter can make 10 decibels of difference. So I can't stress enough, only look at the results in this graph. And yes, they do look like they're loud, but you kind of, again, you need to remember we're just basing it off of our sound meter. So essentially what you're really looking for is a place in the graph. And you can see quite happily here, you've got the S36 and the S24 up near the top is one of the quieter ones. Now the two coolers at the top above this are single 120mm fans. the fact that there's so little between the S36 and the S24 should go to show you how quiet they are, because you're basically adding another fan. Also, on this graph, that is the only 360mm cooler on there. So it's the only one with 3 fans. All of the other ones in there have 1 or maybe even 2 fans at very most. So it does go to show you how literally ridiculously quiet these things are. If you do put it on to auto mode and you let it will get ridiculously quiet, and it will favour it being quiet over all out temperatures. It really is one for a silence freak. And we're moving into a conclusion quite rapidly here. So what I'm going to say is we're going to give them the OC 3D Silence Award, because that silence is a very difficult thing, but they're chuffing, and that's CHUFFING, it's not a swear word, quiet, ridiculously quiet. Probably, if not certainly, the quietest AIOs we have ever tested. So, and I did think about Innovation Award, because I love, and I do mean I absolutely love, the way that fan cable goes up through the hose. Now, it's going to make it difficult if you do plan on extending them, but at the end of the day, you've got, I don't see many people doing it, if I'm honest, but you do have the option, and you can obviously you can still disconnect the fan header up at the rad end. The other thing I would say is they're so tidy with the way that cable kind of goes up like that. If the fan cables on the actual rads take a little bit of time to route them around, you can use the screw holes to clip them into with zip ties. And also what you can do is with, like, for argument's sake, the one that's closest, you can run the cable around the fan and then go in, just to make sure that they're all kind of really, really tidy out the way. Please take your time in doing it, because they look amazing when you do. It's just a shame that I was testing these last night when it was really late, and to be honest with you, trying to get a video camera out and remembering what I was doing, I failed really in my trying to rush. I'm actually filming this on the day of the NDA. Anyway, so if you spend some time with them, you can make them ridiculously tidy. If you're really that anal about it as well, you could even cut the cables down and add the connectors in exactly where you wanted them. If you're going to have them bunched up along the back, if you're going to have them bunched up rather than all wrapped round and stuff, make sure it's at the back, out the way of where you can't see it, basically, just to keep your rig that little bit tidier. So I love the little header idea, that's brilliant, and they nearly got an Innovation Award for that, but I thought I was being a little bit too kind. But silence-wise, performance-wise, they were absolutely amazing. With the auto, that's going to suit a million people, do you know what I mean? Just bang it on auto. But if you are one of those people that like messing around with fan curves and stuff like that, you can literally just plug it into your motherboard, and the PWM signal ends up getting passed through. So you've got two very clear and easy options there. The PWM is obviously great if you're one of those people that has it open and likes to tune everything. Mine, for example, was on ridiculously silent mode unless I hit render, and the CPU hits a certain temperature when I render, and then the fans kind of slowly kick in. So, you know, I kind of flick between which way I want to swing as well. So the fact that they cover both those bases is a massive thumbs up. Now, 240mm, easy, do you know what I mean, for most people. It can cope with a 5 GHz 7700K, which is going to mean it's going to be able to easily cope with your Ryzen overclock as well. With the 360mm, really what this is all about, that extra fan, essentially what that gives you is the ability to be able to cool as well, but at lower fan speeds, because what you can do with that is drop the fan speeds down and keep a similar kind of performance level that you would with the S24, but with higher fan speeds. So that is the thing to take from this. If you've got room for a 360mm AIO in your rig, then I personally cannot say how handy and good they are if you like a quiet system. I actually have a 360mm AIO in my personal rig, which is on my desk. You can find a video about it on the channel if you're interested. And I have mine mounted in the front. I really wouldn't worry about it, you know, hot air and all that sort of stuff. As long as you've got decent roof fans, in there, it just kind of sorts itself out, and I've not run into any temperature related issues with anything else, including the fact that I have a M.2 drive stood up off the board because I've got an X99 Deluxe too, and the AIO is blowing into that, and I've not had any problems at all. So if that's a worry, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Like I said, roof fans, Bosch, easy peasy. And like I said, you can run some ridiculously low fan speeds, especially when you're down at the desktop and stuff. I think I've got mine set when I'm at the desktop to like 400 RPM. They hardly turn. So that is really where that comes into its own. Obviously, if you can get an AIO and you've got room for it in the roof, put it up in the roof. Yes, definitely. Blowing out, get all the hot air straight out the roof. But if you haven't got room, don't think to yourself, oh, I'm going to get the S24 so that it, you know, it blows out the roof rather than in my front of my case with the S36. Yeah, don't worry about it. If you can fit this one, I would genuinely get that one. The fact that there is a 360mm back on the market, because there's not really been a great deal of options, especially in the UK. The Kelvin, when the stock started to drop for that, when they knew this one was coming, I've had quite a lot of people saying about 360mm rads. So that is actually quite a good thing for all those silent freaks out there. It's just a shame. Fractal normally do white stuff, and it's just a shame they've not kind of been brave and done any other colours, but then nobody else does either. And I suppose the only thing that I don't like about it is the radiators on them are a bit generic, and that printed serial number on the side, it does kind of let the side down a bit. But if you are handy and you fancy a weekend project, you could easily fix that, paint it whatever colour that you wanted. Just make sure that you mask up inside over the radiator fins on both sides and mask up all the hose and everything. If you'd spend your time, you would be able to do it. The hubs on them for the fans can be unscrewed as well, so there's no reason why you couldn't spray the whole of the radiator. Again, just take your time. Bit of Scotch Brite, you know, like the rough, like cleaning stuff for the kitchen, you know the one I mean. I don't know what they call it in the States, but we call it Scotch Brite in the UK. Scuff it up with some of that, clean it off, and because there's no mixed materials or anything on there, you should be able to get away with normal primer. And then if you're going to do a dark colour, you can use a grey primer. If you're going to paint it white, then make sure you use a white primer. You know what I'm on about. Anyway, so yes, lovely, lovely, lovely OC3D Silence Award. Probably, if not certainly, the most quiet, yet very kind of, it does perform very well in the pack considering. But yeah, thumbs up, Fractal. It's good to have you back.